Welcome to my reroll brand Cavalier guide. This comp feels very similarly to Vanguard Mystics builds in previous sets, and it is just as powerful if played correctly. In this video, I will go over the build, what items you make, how to play before level 6, during level 6, and after level 6. Then we will go into some in-depth positioning examples. The build is relatively flexible as there are only 4 core units for the level 6 comp, and they are Brand as the primary carry, Victor as the secondary carry, Hecarim as the primary tank, and Sejuani as the secondary tank. But I often find myself slow rolling at level 6 with this board. Here we put in Kled for another Cavalier to make our frontline even stronger, and Thresh for 3 Forgottens for some extra backline axes. The whole goal of this comp is to stall for as long as possible so that everything dies to Brand's ability. Another variation at level 6 is 4 Spellweavers. I've only run this if I had Zyra 2 while slow rolling, and I also have 2-star Hecarim and Sejuani. Another variation is the one where we add in Nautilus and Thresh for 2 Knights and 3 Forgottens. Whichever one of these you slow roll with depends a lot on which units you hit, but in general, this variation is the strongest at level 6. Once you are done rolling at level 6, you will go to as far of a level ahead as possible, and I will give more info on when you do that later in the video, but most of the time you will go to level 8 before you have to roll again. Our level 8 board is also flexible, but we have 6 core units for that board, and they are our previous 4 core units, plus Rel for another Cavalier, and also to act as a sustain and an anti-assassin unit. Rise as well is there for 3 Forgottens, as well as being an anti-assassin unit. A standard level 8 board looks like this. Here we have 4 Cavaliers with Kled for more frontline, as well as Lux for a Mystic and more sustain. You can also go for 3 Mystics by adding in Lulu or Kindred. You can go for 3 Ironclads with Nautilus and Jax. You can add in Iron Volibear for more CC, or you can add in 4 Spellweavers with Zyra and Vel'Koz. If this was a bit confusing to you or you are a newer player, I recommend you just stick to this variation at level 6, and this variation at level 8 until you get more comfortable with the comp. I will go more in depth on which of these variations you want to run in the different situations in the post level 6 part of the video. Brand is the primary carry for this comp, so we prioritize making items for him first. He has 1 core item, and that is Blue Buff. This item increases his damage output by about 50%, and he only needs to auto once between every cast. Dark Blue Buff is not really a replacement as you don't get the same effect until you're lower than 50 HP. I would go as far as saying that this comp is unplayable without regular Blue Buff on Brand. The second item for Brand wants to be a damage item. This can be JG, any decap, or Morello. The third item for Brand can be another damage item, or it can be a healing item. This can be IE if you build JG, another decap, any Gunblade, any Hosh, any Giant Slayer, and GA can also work if there are a lot of assassins in the lobby. After we have itemized Brand, we want to itemize Hecarim. He wants tanky items like any Bramble, any Declaw, any Warmogs, or Shadow GA. The rest of your items can be more AP items on Victor, or more tank items on Sejuani or Rel. But there is one item that is incredibly strong in this comp, and that is Shadow Titans. This item allows you to still win fights if your Brand dies early, as you build up giant stacks of true damage on one of your 3-star Cavaliers. This item is best on 3-star Hecarim, but it is also great on 3-star Sejuani as well. The carousel priority for this comp is Tier, Rod, Glove, then Chain. Since we're rolling for this comp at level 6, we can play almost any opener we want to, but the strongest opener for this comp that we can consistently hit is Hellions with 2 Cavalier. Here Siggs is the item holder for Brand, and we can use Poppy as the item carrier for Hecarim until we find him. Some other good openers for this comp are Kha'Zix with Dawnbringer Brawler frontline, Brand with 3 Abomination or Cavalier frontline, or Lissandra with 3 Coven. Once we have our opener, we need to make items, and as a general rule, you want to make an item if we have 4 or more components. Generally, it's better to be a bit more greedy with Brand items and to not be greedy at all with Hecarim items. You just slam whatever you can make on them in the early game. Your early game strategy will depend a lot on how good your opener is. In some games you play for a loss streak, and in some games you play for a win streak. Since we're slow rolling at level 6, the goal is to be level 6 on 3-5 with at least 50 gold or more, so we can level aggressively in the early game if we want to. If you want to learn more about how to play the early game, check out my guide where I go in depth on the subject. At the crux round, you should have more direction towards the comp. The general requirements to play reroll Cavalier is to have at least 1 tier for Blue Buff and at least 1 other Hecarim or Brand item. The units we have here matter a little, as the more we have before we start slow rolling, the faster we will hit our 3-stars. On stage 3-2, you want to be level 6 most of the time, and sometimes you will need to roll a little bit here if you played for a loss streak opener in the early game. Once we reach 50 gold, we start slow rolling, meaning we roll down to 50 gold every single turn. This is to maximize our odds of hitting 3-star units. Our 3-star priority is Brand, Hecarim, Sejuani, then Victor, meaning that if you need to sell a unit for more bench space, then you sell Victor first, then Sejuani's. But in some cases, if you're really close to Victor but far off Sejuani, you can sell off Sejuani as you're not going to 3-star her that game. By stage 4-1, you will generally need to have at least Brand 2-star and Hecarim 2-star in order to be stable. And by stage 5-1, you will generally need at least 3-star Brand or 3-star Hecarim. Sometimes if you're healthy, you can greed, but in general, you can go below 50 gold here in order to hit one of them. Once you hit Brand 3-star and Hecarim 3-star, you have a couple of different options. The first one is to keep slow rolling if you're close to Sejuani and Victor as well, meaning you have at least 7 or more of both of them. If you have less, just sell them for eco and start pushing levels. The reason we don't need to 3-star all of them is that our win condition is just Brand 3-star and Hecarim 3-star. The other two are just icing on the cake. Once you push levels, you push to as far of a level as possible, which can be level 7, 8, or 9 depending on how healthy you are once you hit. If you have an unlucky game where you're 2 lives, you need to roll down until you hit, as you generally always want to preserve 2 lives in TFT. The reason being is that if you fight one of the super high roll players, you will take a lot of damage but not enough to kill you, so you still have a living chance against the other players. At level 7, you usually want to add in Rel for 4 Cavaliers, and at level 8 you have a couple of different options like I mentioned in the build part of the video. Therefore, scouting in the late game is really important for this comp, as you need to see what 2 extra units will give you the most value. Lux is great for shielding and 2 mystics, Lulu is great as she's an anti-assassin unit and a mystic, Ivern and Volibear are quite hard to 2-star, but if you hit them, they are great and provide a ton of CC, and also to counter comps that group up. If you hit both Sejuani and Hecarim 3-star, you almost always want 4 Cavaliers as you're directly buffing your 2 strongest tanks. Ironclads are great versus AD, but you only go 3 Ironclads if you're only facing AD comps without Last Whisper or Darius, as Jax does absolutely nothing for your team besides giving you more armor. If you're able to go to level 9, you will add in another one of those units I mentioned earlier. And if you have a lot of gold, you can pivot into the most capped version of this comp, and it looks like this. Keep in mind that you will rarely be able to pull this off as you need to high roll pretty hard in the entire game to do so. And this board is assuming that you 3-starred all your 2 costs. If you didn't 3-star one of them, replace them for another legendary unit. First, I will go over general positioning with this comp, then I will go over some in-depth examples. General positioning looks like this. Here we have Hecarim on the outskirts for more frontline, and we want him to heal off of as many units as possible. Rel is next to him so that he gets shielded by her, and also she shields our backline. Sejuani is on the other outskirt to take arrow from most of the enemy carries. Brand is cornered to stay safe, Victor is next to him, and Ryze is a bit closer to the middle so that he stuns the assassins. Kindred is close to our backline so that she protects them all with her ultimate. Against the first guy, the big threat is Vel'Koz. We have Kled to be eaten by Nunu. The rest of our frontline is more towards the left side. This is to funnel the Vel'Koz ultimate away from our backline, which is more towards the right side. Against the second guy, we want to spread out in order to not give Karma much value, as her targeting is random. Rel is shielding our backline, our frontline is a bit spread out, this is to counter Karma, and also to make sure they dash after taking down the first units in order to get the extra damage reduction. Our backline is also spread out, and here we have Kindred next to Brand to make sure that he stays a bit safer. We also have positioned Brand to be away from the Heimer ultimate. Against the third guy, the big threat is Set, mostly because Brand will walk into his ultimate range. The Abomination Grave is also something to keep in mind. We have the Wolf to bait out Viego, Ryze is baiting Zyra and Abomination Grave, Kindred is between Victor and Brand, Set is targeting Hecarim, this way Brand won't walk into his ultimate, and if Hecarim were to die, Set would be attacking the rest of our frontline. Against the fourth guy, we are facing 6 assassins, and that is this comp's worst matchup. It is incredibly hard to win this one as we have very little ways to deal with assassins in this comp. The only way we ever beat it is to have our Brand hugging the sides. We can't do a traditional clump up against assassins as the Cavaliers dash to the front line. When the assassins jump, they have nowhere else to land but in these hexes. Therefore, our Brand is behind at least one line of defense, and a lot of the assassins will also walk up and attack our front line and will die to the Hecarim. In general, if you don't have some positioning like this, you will always lose versus assassins unless you have insane frontline with anti-crit items. And if you're in a 1v1 situations against assassin, you just want to full frontline your Brand. Thank you so much for watching. If you learned something, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Comment down below what video you want me to make next. And if you want to get better at TFT, join the Discord. We got over 3,000 other players there who are hungry to climb. And if you want to get coached by me, the information is over on the Discord server as well. So take care and see you in the next video.